Welcome and thanks for joining us. You might notice we're on a somewhat different format than usual for our Federal News Network webinars, forced on us, but I think it's going to work out well by the situation that the whole nation is facing with everyone teleworking. So my guests today are Andy Hershey. He's Global Area Vice President for Cloud Sales and Go-to-Market Transformation at Splunk, and Juliana Vida, the Chief Technical Advisor for Public Sector at Splunk. And let's just spend a moment getting to know each of you and just tell us a little bit about what your work actually involves with federal agencies. Juliana?
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be here. My role at Splunk in the Chief Technical Advisor role is to engage with our executive level customers, but the public also, to talk about the business and mission impacts of technology, not necessarily the nuts and bolts of the technology, but how it can really transform organizations. And I come from a military career as a retired naval officer and a prior federal civil servant in the Department of Defense, and I bring that experience to the game.
Excellent. Andy?
Yes, good morning. My role at Splunk is I oversee our Splunk Cloud service and the revenue for that and all the go-to-market aspects of that as well. I've been with Splunk for the past 9 years, and prior to that, my career has been in various sales and sales leadership roles throughout the software industry.
All right, well, it's good to have you both, and let's get right into it. With respect to cloud, first of all, agencies often say, well, we have a hybrid cloud strategy. What is the reality? First of all, and we'll also ask you to define it, but what is the reality of how far they have actually gone to cloud? And should they be pushing further toward the hybrid cloud model? Andy?
It's a great question. And I think before we even get into that, which I know a lot of our discussion today will be about exactly that point, I think when I hear the word cloud oftentimes, I think it's really good to define it because it's like the phrase big data. It's often a buzzword that means different things to different people. And really, the cloud journey or digital transformation, these are terms used where cloud's really a key part of it. And really they're about, as much about just really quickly innovating and adapting to achieve the mission needs as much as about the cost and technology. And when people oftentimes bring up cloud, they talk about the different technical aspects or the cost and so forth. Anyone that's listening, I would suggest when you hear cloud, just ask a few questions to level set early in a conversation. The biggest thing about cloud is, what are people looking to achieve? What outcomes are people looking to achieve by using cloud? Again, cloud is an enabler for mission outcomes or, innovating faster time to market, security, agility, flexibility. So just understand what's the outcome being achieved to avoid having a science project digging into cloud a lot of detail. The other thing is, in addition to outcomes, there's a lot of different terms and so forth. You mentioned hybrid, but just the term itself, cloud, what is cloud? Oftentimes people say, really, what is cloud? Simple way of describing it, it's the server, software, tools that are accessed and available over the internet. Another word is public cloud or infrastructure as a service, IaaS. And that's like your servers, like if you outsource your data center, but your servers, they're in the cloud. So AWS, S3 storage is a perfect example of that. I think it's, again, a fancy way of outsourcing your data center, SaaS, software as a service. It's accessing software through the internet like Salesforce, Workday, ServiceNow, Slack, Aviso, Exactly, NetSuite, Zoom. We use a lot of these at work today, and even in our personal lives, you could think of Quicken and Netflix and Yelp as being other examples. And the final buzzword or term I would use is platform as a service, PaaS. And I think this one is a little tricky when it comes up because it involves providing the infrastructure, but plus the tools to build and manage an application. So unlike SaaS, where you get the application ready to use, available right away, the application that will be used by the end users, it doesn't exist until you build it yourself.
Yeah, and to touch on more of what Andy talked about, he mentioned many of the benefits, that a hybrid cloud or a cloud environment could bring. There's so many, it's kind of hard to list them or prioritize them. But you really can't question the return on investment when you look at all the benefits that can be gained from an agency. And I'd like to kind of put this in context of what we're all experiencing right now today. And that's this pandemic that's forced so many people to work from home. And I was a federal civil servant, like I mentioned, back when we had Snowmageddon, 2010, and some government shutdowns, and was sent home to work. But that was disruptive, and it's disruptive now. And it's not just disruptive to the work, it's demoralizing to the workforce who don't have the tools to stay productive while they're out of the office, because that work isn't going away. They're still going to face it, when they get back to the office. And we didn't have a hybrid cloud environment then, and a lot of agencies don't have it now, that can really ease the pain on the workforce. The legacy and on-prem applications require that employees be at their work machine to get their work done and access what they need. The updates take time because they're provisioned through a data center. But on the other hand, a cloud environment is where that rapid development of applications happens. It's seamless, it's fast, and it could be easier for employees to access and use them from home. Think about Netflix as an example. Andy mentioned that as one. A lot of people have this at home, and we don't know this as a user or consumer, but adjustments and updates are being done in the background by the developers. We just know that our user experience is enhanced and it's getting better. And think about how that would be and what a change that would be for the government workforce if that were happening all the time, whether they're at work or at home working remotely.
Yes, I guess in the current situation, you could fairly say that at this point in history, this well into the 21st century, that there should be much more adoption of cloud simply for a continuity of operations standpoint, a tool they didn't have 20 years ago in 9/11, say, when there was not nearly as much interruption in reality as there is now, which is affecting every state, city, region, county.
Tom, I think that's a great point. And I think about cloud tools like, Google Drive and Box and Dropbox. These are really the keys to the future of work in time like this. Previously thinking about it, you take a spreadsheet, send it to your coworkers, people would collaborate, you try to maintain version control, update them based on feedback. But today, using Google Drive and these other tools, we can just all look at something together real time or take turns modifying one document and really collaborate remotely very effectively. And I think just as importantly, Zoom and video conference tools, they just enable remote workers to have that level of collaboration and communication from home. And whether it's a one-to-one phone call or just anything, really, workers can be much more productive from home than they could be back in the days of 9/11 or even a couple years ago.
Let's talk about some of the recent policies, getting away from the bad situation right now, but there is a cloud smart strategy that came out, I guess, about a year ago. And then we also have the IT modernization report that came out. These don't seem to have quite been the burr in the saddle that agencies might have needed or should have heeded to move to that cloud migration to a greater degree. What do you sense are the reasons for slow adoption at this point?
Yeah, you make some really great points. And I would say that those are great policies and guidance documents, but they often, they're like other guidance documents. They don't often come with funding, let's be frank, and they don't have a lot of detail. So other things get in the way. Things like hiring and retention challenges, culture, workforce transformation challenges, procurement processes, the acquisition process. But I think really here with cloud and embracing the cloud, one of the biggest barriers for agencies to overcome is not technical at all. It's honestly that agencies and government workers can't see the mission value that moving to a cloud environment would bring them. So when they can't see that, it falls off the plate in lieu of other agency priorities. And often it's just because workers are heads down, they're executing on their mission and they aren't aware of all the benefits that other agencies are getting from cloud. And so I want to just touch on two agency examples that we've seen that should kind of give people ideas about what they might do in their agency with cloud. And one of them comes from the VA, Veterans Affairs. And their mission is to care for servicemen and women and their families. And they wanted to consolidate and replace many of the disparate legacy systems that made it really hard, cumbersome for veterans to access their benefits. Just to refill a prescription or track their GI Bill benefits, for example, the user experience was just, it wasn't good. It was difficult. And the VA wanted their customers to have a better experience, similar to other things that they use in their personal lives. So moving to a public cloud allowed them, to address the complexity and diversity of systems that was negatively affecting their mission to deliver services to veterans. And the cloud provided that for them.
All right, I want to interrupt you right there before we get to that second example, because we do need to take a short break. Today are Juliana Vida, she's Chief Technical Advisor for the public sector at Splunk, and Andy Hershey is the Global Area Vice President for Cloud Sales and Go-to-Market Transformation at Splunk. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. This discussion is Ensuring Cloud Migration and Modernization Success, sponsored by Splunk here on Federal News Network.